This is Twin Peaks Archetypes, a video in which we will take a deep dive into the archetypal character aspects of this amazing story and how the characters relate to the larger, I guess what I would call a meta archetype of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. And while I'm presenting my own take on these archetypes, of course, I am very much looking forward to your thoughts and your interpretations on these characters as well. Who knows where this is going to lead? So I'm interested to hear your takes. Now, I am ceaselessly fascinated with the character aspect of storytelling, as oftentimes these character aspects, in a very real sense, they hold a mirror up to our own journey in life. And I know I have learned a lot on this project and have also been reminded of many important things along the way. So I'm very happy to have these areas of my own heart-mind reignited through one of the greatest examples of artistic expression ever to find its way onto primetime television. So let's go. Now, if you've seen my previous videos on Silent Hill, this video is going to be in a similar format. We will be looking at these archetypes through the lens of the hero's journey. So character transformation in Twin Peaks is just about occurring in every direction and trajectory possible. The most integral element in terms of effective world building is having very dynamic characters. Now, the different character aspects, their individual trajectories and their transformations add an incredible amount of depth to this character-driven story, and it leaves us all quite a lot to reflect upon. Twin Peaks is very transcendent in its nature and is the sort of thing you don't really see all too often in what is presumed to be the art forms of film and TV. Unfortunately, most of what appears on TV and film, much of the time, is just merely entertainment. Twin Peaks seems the sort of thing that Joseph Campbell would have taken a supreme interest in, at least I think so. Living and fluid archetypal forms which shapeshift, degrade, transcend, all right before our eyes, which unconsciously hints at the elusive nature of identity. It's a wildly compelling world of dark and beautiful mystery that's actually running quite parallel to our own. The reason the hero's journey is the most heavily relied upon archetype in storytelling is simply because there is something in it for us at a very deep and unconscious level. Otherwise, we wouldn't be so interested because the audience is always asking, what's in it for me? The hero's journey represents our individual journey through this experience we call life. To know thyself deeply is paradoxically the key to knowing others, at least in some very fundamental aspects. Of course, we can never know anyone or experience any story quite as well as our own. Along the hero's journey, there are many new discoveries, challenges, successes, and failures, all of which sort of amalgamate into what we call life experience, or the elements which give life to a story and effectively build a world out of our pure conscious and creative awareness. This is an ability, of course, that we all share, which curiously, the source of which seems to have given rise to the very essence of everything that we know in existence. So let's start with the most obvious archetype, the hero. Agent Dale Cooper, an FBI agent drawn into this small logging town nestled in the Cascades of Washington State. He comes to Twin Peaks in order to investigate the heinous murder of the high school homecoming queen, Laura Palmer. This killing is the call to adventure for the hero. Having never been to Twin Peaks before, Coop approaches his role with perfect courage and a sincere willingness to help. His pleasant demeanor and sincere interest in the area causes him to be accepted almost immediately. This is a key attribute for this archetype to possess, since the hero must shoulder the burden for the village or town, putting himself in danger, often on their behalf, as he traverses the other world seeking answers. The hero often brings something of value back to the townsfolk, and if he's able to return, that is the primary role of the hero, of which Agent Cooper fulfills beautifully. Of course, the hero can't go it alone. He depends upon many spirit guides and helpers along the way. Some are well-meaning, while others remain ambiguous or are perhaps bordering on evil. In Twin Peaks, there are many different characters which fulfill several of these archetypal roles simultaneously. So before we go into each of these characters and their commensurate archetypes in more detail, let's briefly review the 7 main archetypal character roles. First, why do we even have or need archetypal forms at all in the first place? I guess this question can be answered by another question, which is to ask, why is it that we should take on a certain number of personality traits and temperaments directly from our parents, and yet paradoxically, we remain a unique individual with our own tendencies that are not shared by our progenitors? The same can be asked of a character from any story. There will be a certain amount of traits common to figures in all stories that came before, whether they be fictional, real life, or mostly a combination. So in this sense, character originality is perhaps a very strange and occulted combination of things which came before, with the addition of some unpredictable, novel qualities which transcend the previous, yet were mysteriously inspired by them at the same time, which is why the hero wears 1,000 masks. Okay, so here are the 7 main character archetypes we will be looking at. Now, to me, there are 7 main character archetypes. There are others in existence, and there are subtypes, but for the sake of consistency and organization, I prefer the following 7 main archetypes, all of which overlap with one another in some ways and subsequently have a shadow aspect that I may point out with some of these characters as well. The hero is central to the story, of course. Some stories are about the anti-hero, whom in my mind is merely the hero affected by terrible personal circumstances. So starting with the mentor next, the mentor is an assistant, a helper, or a guide to the hero. The mentor offers challenges, advice, training, totems, and supplies to the hero. Then we have the trickster. The trickster is the most unaffected character in terms of their relationship to the hero. It's a character that loves to inhabit the gray zone and instigate some playful chaos and paradoxical notions for the hero, and really just about every other character. Now, the shadow can be thought of as the hero's nemesis, although this may only be true for a limited time. And I would say that each of these 7 archetypes has sort of an anti-archetype or a shadow that kind of is a mirror to these to each of these archetypes. Now, the herald is responsible for ushering the hero into the quest and is responsible for moving the action forward in the story. This is a very fluid archetype, and this can be, this typically isn't just one character, or sometimes it's a very short-lived role. The herald appears at the very beginning of the story to call the hero to action and then disappears. Or you'll have the role of the herald shared in key turning points of the story. Next are the Threshold Guardians. They're a very interesting bunch. They can be very slippery. They present different challenges to the hero, which can and often are life-threatening. Threshold Guardians possess an ability to transform in a certain level. So in a certain way, they have a certain quality that is similar to the final archetype we're looking at, and that's the Shapeshifter. Now, probably the most compelling and mysterious character of them all, the Shapeshifter is the most elusive archetype. The Shapeshifter remains a mystery even to herself or himself. The Shapeshifter is definitely my favorite archetype.